So the second thing that we just read this Shabbos is we read Parshat Zachor, and Parshat Zachor tells us that we have a constant command to remember the struggle against Amalek. And it starts with the phrase of Zachor et asher aseh lecha Amalek. You should remember what they did. And the very paragraph ends, Lo tishkach. You shouldn't forget. The oddity of this perush is that each word has a sense in and of itself of what it's going to say, and the notes define whether the words join together or whether the notes separate the words out. So when we get to the very end, we see Lo tishkach. Sorry, it's rubbing through from the other page, but you see, you should not forget. We remember when we've talked about tipcha sweeps us back to the idea from before, but then has a pause after it. No,
even without that straight line?
Even without that straight line, you're going to forget. So our parish is going to tell us something very different from the way that we would normally phrase these words. We're normally going to say, this is something you shouldn't forget. Right. But we're saying, no, comma, forget.
It's like, no, swimming aloud. Like, no, you are going to forget. It's like,
we have to deal with what the implication of this is. And the idea is that Amalek represents a form of thought. It represents the idea of people putting their intellect and their own ego to the point of saying that if I can think it, it can exist. And it can deny God in its totality by saying this is my sense of importance. And what Judaism is telling us is that there is an absolute line in the sand. There is a point where you have to call something right and you have to call something else wrong.
Like absolute morality.
So there is an absolute sense of morality. That's what Judaism defines. That's part of what it is. If you don't accept God, then you don't accept an absolute morality. Therefore, you can't be Jewish. So when we go back to the word lo, you should not, it's sweeping us back to think of everything that's come before, and it's telling us that all of the things that Amalek thought and stands for, we're going to say no to that.
Say no to drugs. Say no to
and then we're going to pause, and we're going to get to the word tishkach. And to understand the stability of a sof pasuk, with the word tishkach, you're going to forget. When we're talking about the concept of Amalek, I bring you to the words of Balak, of Bilam. Bilam was hired to curse the Jewish people, and he said his little bit about the Jews, and then he starts looking out at the desert, and he starts talking about the other nations as well. And what does he say about Amalek? He says, Reshit goyim Amalek, V'acharito adei oved. That Amalek is first amongst the nations, but eventually it's going to disappear. Amalek was the first nation who decided that what the Jewish people stood for was something that they were going to stand against, even if they were going to lose, because they wanted their idea, their way of life, to be part of something that's inculcated into the world. So they're the first ones amongst the nations who tried to prove that, but Torah tells us, Acharito adei oved, their end will be that they will be totally destroyed. That philosophy will disappear from the world. And when that philosophy does disappear from the world, when we get to adei oved, then you'll be able to tishkach. You'll be able to forget what they stood for, because they won't be there anymore. So lo, pause, tishkach, with stability at tishkach. And I thought that was that was very fitting to say on the doctor's yurtzeit, to extrapolate again from his perush onto perhaps one of the most salient things in Torah, something that we have a mitzvah to say and to hear every year. We're going to continue on our section on Noah.
A little Zionistic is that the year of the Six-Day War was Tafshin Kav Zayin, but that was in June, and already by September was Rosh Hashanah, so it was Tishkach. The year, September 1967, was in Hebrew letters Tishkach, which forget, because they already forgot, they got very egotistic about the Six-Day War, that my and so it's very symbolic that the year was Tishkach. 3 months after the Six-Day War, they already forgot that it was from God. And the year was called Forget,
We'll remember that. We're in the section on Noah.
Where else is Zachor Lo Tishkach? And I'm sure there's some connection with the Sarah Mashkin and Sarah Ofin. Remember? I remember the Nechama language. He says, "Remember me to the king," and then that's why later he also criticized because you shouldn't put your faith in Goyim or whatever. But it says, "Lo Zachar Lo Tishkach." So Nechama later said, "This is not connected to the
say it for the tape. Lo Zachar Sarah Mashkim et Yosef vayishkachehu. Not only did he remember him, did he not remember him, but he specifically made himself forget him.
So Nechama he asked, it was the two dreams that he was in the so then he says, "You're getting out." He gets freed, the other one gets hung, like exactly what he said. And he says, "Remember me to Paro, to get me out of here." And then 2 years passed, because he was an opportunist, and he didn't, until it was good for him, then he remembered. So Nechama says, why does that say he didn't remember and he forgot? I mean, it's the same thing. He says, no, he purposely didn't remember. He did remember, but until it's advantageous to him, he chose to forget. When he would be an opportunist, then he remembered all of a sudden.
Yeah, we're continuing Parshat Noach, Breshit, Perek Tet, Pasuk Vav, Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. We're on page 76 in the section on Noach. And again, for those of... That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling
No, so for those are...
No, we take precedent because we're here in person. When they come here, we're allowed to talk, believe us.
Don't worry. So
Jeff always says, Jeff, tell them, because they don't believe. You're allowed to talk. They want to know, that, even in Israel, they want to know that we're discussing it and talking. We don't have to be quiet, but we're not afraid of those stupid cameras.
So you'll notice that what happens in the parish is you've got a word together with its note in the Hebrew on the one side, in the English on the other side, and then underneath it's referenced with a number, and the number tells us what that specific thing refers to. So we have shofech, the first word. In English it says shedding, and the note on top of the kapsofit is a pashta. Pashta is something that emphasizes the word that we're talking about and lets us go forward into what's going to come after it. And then you'll see what we've done with this. We've turned again into a complete and separate thought in and of itself. Any attempt of shedding the vital juice of life, even from a limited area of the body, like causing pallor of the face, flushing, etc., by a change in the distribution and translocation of the regular volume, is an offense against the personality of an individual, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So again, this is something that is on top, is something that shows off. So when we see that we're talking about spilling, we're not only talking about spilling blood, we're talking about making somebody embarrassed as well. And we've learned that by the position of the note and the fact that it's telling us that this is something that's going to go forward and lead to consequences. Dam, blood, number 2.
I just want to make it as an aside. This is the source for the 7 Noachide laws. This pasuk. Follow this pasuk.
Although the blood may stay within the body of an individual and is not poured outside, mental trauma can cause those changes in circulation equivalent to killing without a knife, shpichat damim, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So this is a munach, or a part of zakif katon. This is a note that it might be a little bit unclear for you there, so I'm going to draw it out here again. Has a sharp line and then a line going forward. So what it's going to tell you is that this word is separated out from what's gone before it, and then is going to lead you into something new that's going to go from there on. Rachel, it's okay, you can talk. If you have a question, I'm
But you have it backwards.
Yeah,
then.
no, just because he's drawing it on the other side.
it looks forward on the camera.
On the phone camera, it's fine. And
But for us,
on the camera, on the
so
camera,
you care more about them than us. Okay, fine. That's all. Yeah.
well, you've been here before. You know exactly what to look for.
No, but okay, I thought he's okay, but
And
on the
you can
camera
look
it's
at- and you can look at
I'm
someone.
telling you,
I'm
He
here.
was trying to explain it to you before you got all this.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I shouldn't. I think that you made it.
It's separating us out from what's come before, and it's going to lead to a new inyan that's going to come after it, a new
You see,
a
the
new,
shape
a
of the
new
note
thought.
itself shows you that it's right. You understand that, Bigger? It's what's in separation.
So again, even though the blood is still inside the person, making it change position is going to lead to new consequences. So blood that stayed in its place, but perhaps stayed within the body, but flowed to somewhere else within the body, i.e. embarrassment, is still categorized as shfichat damim. Ha'adam, of the man. So this is a katon, and again, we're a little bit perhaps difficult to see it in the text there. This is 2 dots that's sitting on top of the word. Whenever we see this note, we're going to think that this is a word that might have more than one implication, more than one thought, when it's talking about what this word means. So number 3, of the man, even intimidating terror or shocking of the man, producing changes of emotions, could be detrimental to life and health with regard to emotional functions and well-being, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So, because this is talking about someone changing mental or emotional state, we're seeing in this word that the man might have had one state of mind from before and another state of mind afterwards. We hear mental anguish, the dog is telling us mental anguish. He came in right on cue.
He's well trained.
Okay, but again, we see that this note tells us that more than one thing is happening with this word. Ba'adam, by the man. So this is a tipcha. This is again that note that we talked before. Sweeps us back to the idea that came before it and has a slight pause after it. And by the way, if you are looking at the word, you'll notice under the bait, after the kamatz, there's something called a makaf. There's something that tells us that the accenting of the word is shared between that syllable with the ba and with the syllable that has the note on it, so that there will be some emphasis on the ba and some emphasis on dam when you pronounce the word.
But the same people who made the troll are the same people who made the makaf? Is it the same time period?
Yes.
Or?
It is the same time period, and then there are a number of Mefarshanim who went through the text extensively to make sure that there was uniformity in the way that it was presented and carried forward.
But is the makaf considered a tamei mikra? No.
It is considered part of the grammar. It's considered part of tamei mikra. Yes.
Oh, really? Tamei mikra is not just a troll.
It's everything.
It's blocking this.
Who, Lima?
The snow clouds being blocked. Sorry.
Which card?